From this slide, I would like to share the example of the logical framework of the GCF approved project. I want to introduce the example of the climate change adaptation and mitigation projects in Nepal, which is located between India and China. And the name of the project is Improving the Climate Resilience of Vulnerable Communities and Ecosystems in the Gandaki River Basin, Nepal. So the project was approved in 2020, and the total project cost is $32 million, among which 83% of which was financed by GCF. So the interesting point of this project is this project addresses both climate change adaptation and mitigation. For adaptation, the project addresses the health, food, and water security issues, as well as livelihood of people and communities, and also ecosystems and ecosystem services. And for the mitigation element, the project addresses the forests and the land use. So as you can see, the final output of the project in terms of the mitigation, about 800,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions reduced by the end of the project, whereas the 1.9 million beneficiaries, both direct and indirect beneficiaries from the adaptation services. You can see the full proposal and the logical framework of the project in this link. So if you're interested, please download. So I'm going to show just some parts of the logical framework because the whole the log frame is quite long. Okay, so let's look at the logical framework example in detail, starting with the project outcome. As you can see, the table consists of the name of the expected outcomes and also the indicator that will be used to check how much the outcome has been achieved during and at the end of the project cycle, and the means of verification, which is the means to collect the necessary information and data related to the indicator. And the baseline is the current status of the related to the indicator, and the target, the midterm and the final target of the indicator, and the assumptions for each outcome. So this particular project selected 4 GCF project outcomes, 3 adaptation outcomes, and 1 mitigation outcome. Well, you don't have to select both mitigation and adaptation, of course. This is just a sample. And the first project outcome they identified is this adaptation 5.0 outcome, which is the strengthen institutional and regulatory system for climate responsive planning and development. And the indicators they use is the institutional and regulatory systems that improve incentives for climate resilience and their effective implementation. And this is the tools they're going to use to collect the information and data related to this indicator. And the current status is the national average of 31% of the budget is allocated for climate change. So they're going to try to increase this number throughout the project time to achieve, to deliver the outcome. And the midterm target, they put these numbers. These are indicating like 55 municipalities allocate at least 25% of their development budget for climate change activities. So they try to increase the number of the municipalities that allocate more budget for climate change adaptation. And the assumptions is some municipalities include adaptation in their long-term plan. And the second adaptation outcome is the strengthen adaptive capacity and reduced exposure to climate risks. And the indicator is the use of vulnerable households, communities, businesses, and services. How much they use the tools, instruments, and strategies and activities under the project responding to climate change and variability. So the current status is there is no bioengineering tool or technique they try to introduce under the project. But for the midterm target, they put 1,000 hectares of forest land, 300 of wetlands, etc. That made resilient through the project technologies. And the final target is more than the midterm target. And the third outcome is also for adaptation, which is a strengthened awareness of climate threats and risk reduction processes. And the indicators they use is the number of males and females that are made aware of climate threats and related appropriate responses. So they didn't identify the baseline, but their target is they're going to raise awareness of the 150,000 people, both men and women. And the final target is 300,000 people raise awareness. The last outcome is related to the mitigation. Improved management of land or forest areas contributing to greenhouse gas emission reductions. And the indicator they use is the hectares of land and forests under the improved and effective management that contributes to the CO2 emission reductions. So under this outcome, they try to increase the hectares of land under agroforestry activities. And the next section of the logical framework is the project outputs. And the header is same, consists of the outputs, indicator, means of verification, and the targets and the assumptions. This project consists of 3 outputs, and they set the same indicator for multiple outputs. Well, you can set the individual separate indicator for each output, whichever suitable for your project. And I'm not going to detail, but the first output is the climate resilient agroforestry and the livelihood improvement actions for coping with the extreme events. And another output is innovation for water availability and water use efficiency for irrigation systems. So they put those indicators and the baseline. Basically, the baseline is 0, no area under flood tolerant crop varieties and the drought tolerant winter crop varieties, etc. So they try to increase the area of flood-prone paddy land and the drought-prone land. And the second output is related to the ecosystem restoration. And the indicators they put is the hectares of community forests under improved management. And similarly, here baseline is set as 0. There's no area under the improved forest management. So they try to increase the area of forests made resilient under the project. The third project output is divided into these three project outputs. Mechanism for plan to restore, monitor, and maintain the ecosystem, and the ecosystem-based adaptation approaches incorporated into government policies and plans, and the knowledge management. So these three outputs will be checked by these two indicators. And this indicator is the incorporation of ecosystem-based approaches in integrated development plans. So currently, there's no ecosystem-based approaches or integrated into the development planning, but they try to increase the number to 25 development plans until 50 plans until the end of the project. So they're going to use these tools as a means of verification to collect the necessary data, like annual progress report, the local. Under the output section, you're going to put the activities and inputs, and the structure of the log frame is a little bit different from the outcome and the output sections. Here you put the name of the activities and its description, and the inputs to the activity and its description. So this example is showing a very detailed description and inputs, but for our training exercise, you don't need to put this much detailed description. But in general, here you can find information like the background and the current status and the issue and the technical the aspect of each activity. And for the input section, what kind of inputs or sub-activity will be necessary to perform each activity, such as for this example, like feasibility study and training manual, demonstration, plantation, and so on. So this example, these three activities will be executed to achieve the output 1.1. In a similar way, these four activities are set to achieve the output 1.2, which is the improved use of water. So you can see some activities are related to the introduction, installation of technologies and the systems, such as irrigation system. And these three activities are for the output 2.1, which is the restoration of natural ecosystem. So you can see the construction of green belts, and structural support for erosion-prone forest road, and the restoration of biodiversity of forest and grassland ecosystem, and so on. And these two activities go to the output 2.2, which is the enhanced technical capacity of the local communities. So you can put the training activities here with the detailed inputs, like how many trainings they're going to conduct, in which locations, and how the manuals are. And then go to the final output 3, which is the community-based mechanism for the ecosystem maintenance and restoration. And the activities, you can see the technical assistance for planning and development, and also the monitoring and maintenance program related to the ecosystem restoration. And the very last project output 3.2, which is the ecosystem-based adaptation approaches, are incorporated into policies and plans, will be achieved by these 3 activities. You can see some of the interesting activities they are proposing. River basin management framework, and develop a framework to assess the economic value of ecosystem and economic ecosystem services, and also the local policy formulation that incorporate adaptation and ecosystem-based adaptation. As you can see, this case project example consists of various components from policy formulation, capacity building, and installation of the soft technology and the hard infrastructure. I hope your country team can come up with interesting logical framework and project idea. So that is all for my presentation. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to discussing with you at the virtual consultation session.